What's up, guys? I got the keys here, back with another video. So today the subject is going to be about how your words and the way that you talk to yourself is very important, right? And this is just, I know that I've said in the past to, don't just sit there and do robotic affirmations and just list off stuff. You actually have to have an intention and a feeling behind those words, right? And you'll notice this when you start to speak to yourself and you get a feeling through your body, right? Or you get a feeling in your heart or, in some other area of your body, right? It could be your head, whatever. But as you start to learn how to speak to yourself in a different way, right? You're going to learn that, how you've been talking to yourself all these years has not been working, right? And a lot of us are speaking ill of ourselves, you know, um, and most of it comes down to intention, right? But even the way that we say that we can't afford things, and I've said it before, like in a past video, I said I couldn't afford to get my teeth fixed, right? But then I changed that and I'm like, well, what if I, how could I afford to do that, right? Instead of I can't afford it, how could I, right? And that is like asking the question to the universe, right? Or like a lot of people when they're laughing, right? They say, I'm dead. Think about what you're saying, right? Um, Now, again, it doesn't mean that it's going to manifest just because you said it, but it has to have a feeling and an intention behind it. And that's what's going to manifest. So if you say it, if you say something like that, but you have also a subconscious belief that actually, you know what I mean? And so that can manifest if your inner voice believes that too, right? And ultimately it comes down to what your thoughts are and how you're thinking about things. So, and I'm still working on this with money because, money is one of the more, how do I say this? It's one of the harder things to, unblock from yourself, right? And to remember that, money is just energy. And we can manifest that from literally nothing. And like I said, I'm still learning. I'm still taking my, studying and learning how to, I'm just studying everybody with money. Like everybody that pops up on my YouTube, everything. I'm just studying, watching, learning. But, even the way that we talk to ourselves in the past, like, oh, I'm tired, I'm this and I'm that. And well, every time you're saying these things, you shouldn't state what is going on right now. You should state as it's going into the future, right? Like you're becoming it. Okay. So you wouldn't say I'm tired, right? You'd say, I'm full of energy, right? Or something like that. And so instead of I am tired and you just manifested more tiredness, right? Now you're going to bring energy in rather than more tiredness. And now I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I'm just giving an example. But the way that you speak to yourself, a lot of the times we say, I'm not worthy of that. I'm not this, I'm not that, I can't do that. I can't do this. Well, anytime you say you can't do something, that's why you can't do it, right? It's because you're saying you can't. And then you also have the subconscious belief that you can't. And so what if you started telling yourself a different story? What if I just tried? What if I just kept trying? And this is another thing that is going to get you far on your journey is persistence, right? And that means you keep going no matter what the risk is, no matter what, what comes up to you, what adversaries try to, stop you, any of this. Nothing is going to stop you but you. And even you can't stop you. So, but, reaffirming to yourself who you are, because this is why they call it the Word of God, right? It's not the Bible. Although there's words of, from God in the Bible, yes, but the word of God is what you speak. And so the only blasphemy that you can say is ill words towards yourself, right? And that's, saying untruths, which, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, those kind of things are backwards, right? Even the word backward, I mean, just look at it, backwards, right? And like, we don't realize how much our words really command our life, right? And not just our words, but like I said, our thoughts. Our thoughts are also important, because that's where everything stems from, right? That's where you're thinking what you're going to say. And so when you start, waking up in the morning and saying, I'm grateful to be alive, and I love myself, and I'm worthy of that love. I'm worthy of wealth. I'm worthy of health, and I am going to be all those things. I know in my heart that all of that is coming to me right now, and not just coming to me, but I already am it, right? And so anything that you put after I am, or I know, or I feel, or I speak, right? All of these are your different chakras or your energy centers, right? So anytime you're speaking from I, that is the soul, right? And this is why we all call ourselves I. So that is the soul speaking. So the soul manifests. And anytime you put I before a sentence, that is something you are willing into existence, right? So the importance of speaking well over yourself and speaking the future timelines into yourself, right? And so this is how we are going to reprogram our subconscious mind. And like I said, not just by like robotically doing it, but also feeling it, having intention. And really, like, what does that feel like to be healthy? What does it feel like to be wealthy? What does it feel like, to be the source? And so when you start viewing things from your highest self, and that means through the eyes of your highest self, right? And your highest self will be your future self, right? So it already knows everything that's going to happen, right? It's already lived the life. It knows how everything's going to go. It knows what you're going to choose. And so when we follow that intuition, we follow the highest self, and we reconnect back to source, right? And not that you're ever disconnected, but we feel that we are. So, sometimes it's okay to, feel like you have to reconnect. And, but overall, like, words are important, guys. Words are swords. That's, if you just take the S from the back, right? It's now a sword. And so this is what you use to battle against anything, against a demon, against a fallen angel, whatever. Your word is your bond. Okay. So anything that you say becomes real. And like I said, it's not like, not everything you say is going to, manifest, but when you have a feeling behind the words and you feel that in your body, right? So if you start saying I am healthy, and you feel what it's like to be healthy within you, right? That is manifesting. That is how you're manifesting things. Okay. So, all of this is a frequency, a vibration, right? And you'll figure it out as you go. It's not going to all happen in one night. Okay. I'm still learning, like I said. But ultimately, the more that you speak positive about yourself, and you start to regain your confidence, and you start to regain who you are and remember who you are, the more you're going to move through this world flawlessly and let things go. You're just going to flow. There's no need to try to control everything. There's obviously, you can control what you can, but whatever you cannot control, you just learn to respond to it, right? And like I said, I know this can be a challenge, but that's the whole game, right? And the more that we can just learn to respond to life rather than react to it, and you know, really just flow with everything. And, you know, like I said, learn to speak to yourself in a positive way, right? Rather than putting, you know, how do I say this? You could consider it black magic in a way, right? Because you're talking ill of yourself. You're talking down on yourself, and you're saying, "Oh, you know, I'm depressed. I'm this and I'm that." Well, you're manifesting more, right? And the longer that we stay in that fear and we stay in that anxiety, we stay in that, you know, we stay in the depression. You know, we're asking for more of it, basically, right? And I know that that sounds harsh. I know it does, but it's just the truth. And so when you can have a picture in your mind, you know, even while you're in this depression or anxiety of, hey, this is everything's going to be okay. I'm just feeling this right now. It's just an emotion, right? It's not who I am. And you let yourself feel it, and then you come out of it, okay? And then you can pick a new emotion, right? And you start talking to yourself in a positive way. I'm going to get through this, right? Everything's going to be okay. And I'm already on the other side, happy and joyful, right? It's just an emotion, guys. And I know that sounds harsh, like I said, but it's just what it is. And I've been through them. I know what it's like. I know what depression is like. I know what anxiety is like. I still feel anxiety sometimes, guys. Um, but overall, this is going to get you further in life. This is going to take you further into your purpose. This is going to take you further into getting money, right? And you know, being able to help your family, being able to help yourself even, right? Um, because if you're speaking down on yourself, then how is your life going to get better, right? And so the more that we can learn to talk positively to ourselves, inner and outer, right? So it is important, guys. And I mean, like I said, it's not like you're gonna learn this overnight. Um, but your words ultimately are spells, right? And anything that you say to yourself is going to come true. So, like I said, that's with belief and intention. But overall, you're going to be all right, and you're going to figure it out. It's going to be all good, and it's already figured out. And that's how you really should see it, right? You've already learned to talk to yourself positively. You already know what to say. You already know who you are to be because you already are it. Okay? So I hope this helped you in some way, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.